Eric here at Team Eccentric, bringing you guys the first duel commentary video I've done in a long time. I'm on the right piloting my MERMAILs, Connor's on the left piloting his going second DINO. Essentially, Connor's deck is just dinosaurs with a bunch of hand traps. That's basically his entire strategy, is hand trap you to death and then summon Ultimate Conductor and OTK you. This MERMAIL list is actually the list I posted recently, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave the link in the comments or in the description. And as you can see, Connor drew a bunch of hand traps there. I apologize for checking my phone there. And then after that point, we get started. I don't open so optimally. You see I have the Dragoons, the Instant Fusion, the Aqua Spirits. You know, had I had a discard outlet, I would have had some pretty good plays here, but because I didn't open any discard outlets for the Dragoons, I kind of had to play through and kind of grind a little bit. You know, I just kind of drew the wrong resources at the wrong time. So I activate the Instant Fusion for my Instant Fusion target, which is the Millennium Eyes Restrict. Such a good card. It's, you know, outs hand traps. So I normal summon the infantry, which gives me an additional normal of Dragoons. And I link one into Link Karibo. Link Karibo is a great card because it establishes a little bit of pressure and board presence the moment it comes out, because being that Connor's deck is mostly just hand traps and then summoning big monsters to shut you and just kind of shut you out and kill you immediately, Link Karibo kind of prevents that. And plus the fact being a Link monster obviously can't be flipped, so Conductor Tyranno kind of has a problem with it. I'm kind of considering like what plays to go down, what sequencing, because MERMAILs are, you know, it's completely a deck about sequencing of plays and figuring out you know, what resources to use. So I go into the Mistar Boy, figuring that if he does manage to destroy anything, if he destroys the Mistar Boy, then I could add back the Dragoons and hopefully get a discard outlet on my next draw. So he terraformings into his Lost World on his turn, activates it, and then from that point he activates the Slumber, which destroys my board, and then because of that I get the Dragoons back. The thing about Lost World is when he summons, he gives me a level 1 token, which isn't exactly optimal on his part, because it gives me fodder for Link Karibo to come back, because Link Karibo has that quick effect that it can reborn itself using a level 1. So he summons the Dogra onto his field and Game of Seal to mine, gives me the token, and then from that point, now I can bring back the Link Karibo right at the beginning of the battle phase, so that if he does attack, I can reduce his monster. So I don't think he was anticipating that, so I bring back the Link Karibo right as he says battle phase, just kind of, you know, establishing that board presence again. He terraforming for another Lost World. I figured, you know, I was curious as to why he did that at this particular time, because, I mean, I guess given, you know, my deck can kind of set up a lot of negates, you know, given I draw a frog, or, you know, a swap frog, so maybe he's just kind of trying to get it out of the way now, but now it's my turn. So I draw my card, so I have a Game of Seal and the Link Karibo, which, and then from that point I drew a Teus, which is good, you know, discard outlet for Dragoons. Chain links 1 Dragoons, chain links 2 Teus, so add the Pike, and then the Prince, and then he drolls me. Now Droll and Lock is absolutely detrimental to MERMAILs, because MERMAILs do a lot of adding of cards, so at that point I'm kind of stuck with what I have in my hand. So I can't really make too many optimal plays, given I can't add any more cards. That being said, essentially I opt to keep the Link Karibo on board and leave it there, because I know that if he does summon the Conductor, then if he tries to attack me, I can at least reduce its attack points. And, you know, just it's just kind of an out. It just, like I said, establishes pressure and puts pressure on the opponent. Especially if they're just playing like big monsters that just attack over everything, because then you just reduce them to 0. So at this point, given the fact that I can't obtain more resources with searches, I opt to normal summon the Pike with no effect. Obviously, can't add anything, and you'll see that I link 3, and for link 3 I go into So I link 3, like I said, and go into the Gaia Saber. And from that point, I believe I pass my turn. Yep, so I pass my turn, and it's Connor's draw phase. Now he's into main phase 1. And he's considering what he can do here, from what I'm aware, and just checking his resource pool. His hand is full of hand traps, so he passes turn to me, knowing that the Link Rebo does stuff. I activate the Upstart Goblin, get that extra card there, and from there I can make plays. So I normal summon the Prince, which is kind of instant advantage. So I pay the cost for Prince, I send the Dragoons, which is, now that Dragoons is at 3, the deck is just so much more powerful. So I add the third Dragoons, which, oh, it feels so good. And then he ashes the first Dragoons that I sent for cost. And I still have many plays and many avenues of play to go down. Like aforementioned, Mermails are a deck that it's all about sequencing of plays and kind of managing your resource pool and getting the most optimal amount of advantage off of the most minimal investment. So from that point, I link the Link Rebo and the Prince. Or do I? Yes, so I banish for the Aqua Spirit first, actually. And the play I make here isn't, I guess, the most optimal, but I link into the Proxy Dragon, and then I link 4 into the Firewall next to it. And I use Firewall effect, I believe, to... Yep, I bounce back to Teus, and then he ogres the Firewall. And I reveal Teus, discarding the third Dragoons, which gives me advantage. So, chainlinks 1 Dragoons, chainlink 2 Teus. So I add the Gund, and I add a Megalo. Obviously here, Megalo is not the greatest, given his Dogoron is a thing, and not only that, Lost World reduces all my monsters. But I revealed 2 Guns, and I forgot I don't have a target for Guns effect in Graves, so I just searched the Abyss Scale, and I forgot I banished had I not banished the Pike, I would have had a target. I should have banished something else, but, hindsight 2020, I suppose. Either way, I mean, even though Megalo isn't the best card in this scenario, it is, in a way. Yeah, I go into Gaios here, so that's actually a plus, and then I activate the Equip spell, giving Gaios 3,100 attack points, being that it's reduced by Lost World by 500, and then it gains the 800 from the Equip spell. So it's exactly 100 points over his Dogoron, so I swing for 100, and then I swing for 900. So that's exactly 1,000 points of damage. He's right back down to 8,000 there. So at that point I end with somewhat of an established board. And at this point it's Connor's turn. And he banishes the Slumber to add a Kaiju. He adds the Spider, the Sticky String. So he tributes my Gaios, which ruins the entire established board that I had. And then he activates Fossil Dig to search. He adds the Overraptor. Normal summons the Overraptor, attempts the effect. And then Lost World gives me the token. He puts it in my final zone, or my rightmost zone, I suppose you could call it. And that being said, he sends the, what does he send here? He sends the Quatless, from what it seems. And then I tribute the token for the Link Rebo. And that Link Rebo just keeps coming back, keeps establishing pressure and putting pressure on Connor's plays. So yep, he sends the Quatless and adds the Big Evolution Pill. And from that point on, he activates the Big Evolution Pill, which, with Link Rebo on board, I feel somewhat safe here. He summons out the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. And, I don't have too much here that I can defend myself with other than the Link Rebo. So he swings with the Overraptor, I believe, at the Link Rebo. Yep. And I use its effect to drop its attack points to 0. And then he swings with Conductor at my Proxy Dragon, so I take quite a bit of damage there. And then he swings at his Kaiju he gave me. So at this point, I am kind of in a top deck situation. I have 1 card in hand, while I have my draw phase. So I kind of scoop it up, go to game 2. We side. Well, I side. I don't know if he sided. Well, I don't think he sided anything, but kind of takes me a minute to figure out what I'm trying to side here. Essentially, I'm trying to go first because I know that Connor's deck likes to go second. However, if I can rip cards from his hand using Moon Glacier and set up negates, things like Totally Awesome or anything like that, even if I set up Abyss Dweller, essentially I stop a lot of his plays. I kind of shut him out of the game, kind of lock him out, make it so he can't play the game. That being said, I opt to side in stuff for going first here. So we're going into game 2, and we're kind of discussing, some of the plays that could have been made last game. The sides, if I'm not mistaken, I think I even sided a couple hand traps just to be sure, because Big Evolution Pill is one of those the card to stop in his deck. Essentially, if you can ash it, then he doesn't really. I mean, yeah, he can go second and hand trap you as well, but he doesn't have any power plays. There's no, Ultimate Conductor coming down, or at least not coming down as easily. He'd have to actually banish 2 dinosaurs from his grave using Conductor's summon condition instead of playing Big Evolution Pill. So at this point, we're going into game 2. We draw our hands, and so I opt to, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe I go first. And that I do. Yes, I do. So it's my turn, and I'm starting off. If I'm not mistaken, this hand was actually pretty good. I drew optimally, so I'm Array of Greed first. And with Murray, I send back Dragoons and Moulin, I believe. Trying to kind of get a better hand. The hand was good, but Murray kind of is one of those cards that you kind of take a gamble. You send 2 waters back, draw 3, hopefully draw something good. And then he drolls me, and then after that I chain the Called by the Grave. Absolutely ruin his play there. I love Called by the Grave, such a good card. So I normal summon the Prince, and from there Connor just drops his hand because he knows Moulin's coming down eventually. So I send Dragoons to add Dragoons, trigger the Goons, add the Megalo. Oh, I love Dragoons at 3, it's so good. Makes the deck so consistent, and it helps the deck in the mid game, because that's one of the things that I didn't like about Mermails. So I reveal the Teus, discard the Goons. You can see I have the plays. I drew the nuts. So I add the Gund and a second Megalo. As I was saying, Dragoons at 3 just makes the deck so much better. So I discard a Goons and a Megalo for another Megalo, and I trigger the Goons. Add the Equip spell, and then Goons. Adds the Moulin. Moulin's coming down eventually, and Connor knows that, so his hand is down. So I link into the Link Rebo for the 5th Water and Grave, and drop the Moulin, and rip 2 cards from his hand, which is really kind of crappy for him, because he already negged 1 with the Droll, and then I Called by the Graved it, so at that point, I take the first card from his hand, which I believe is Lost World, and take the second card, which is a Fossil Dig. So I absolutely just wrecked his entire hand. He's only starting with 3 opening cards, and that's also given I don't have a negate set up. Either way, at this point, his entire game is basically screwed, I suppose. So I go into the Galaxy Tomahawk to try and Link climb a little bit, set up some Link monsters. Galaxy Tomahawk is a really busted card, especially in Mermail, being that it's a rank 7. So I link 4 into the Firewall kind of immediately, just to establish something. And now the Firewall is co-linked once, and I believe I use Firewall. Yep, I use Firewall's effect to send back the Teus to hand, and I reveal the Teus and discard the gun to special summon the Megalo, and then I overlay again into the Gaios, and then I activate the Equip spell. So I have a really good board here. Given, Firewall isn't it's already used its co-linked effect, so it's not loaded or anything, but the Gaios itself is already established pressure. And then he showed me his hand. He had a Lost World and 2 Overraptors. I feel like he could have played through it, but he just opted not to. He scooped, and then we went to Game 3. So Game 3 is the first game Connor sided. I needed to be reminded that any game that we film, we do side, because certain decks are more optimal against other decks, and certain decks just kind of lose out to certain mechanics. So that in mind, I always let players know who film duel videos with us that we are siding. It is sided, and if you don't have a side deck, that is your own problem. It's kind of a dog-eat-dog world out there in Yu-Gi-Oh land, so you got to kind of deal with it. But so Connor decides to side finally, and we're going into Game 3. And as you can see, essentially Mermails are one of those decks where you just kind of either set up a board or OTK your opponent, and I just managed to set up a Gaios with an Equip spell and co-linked Firewall with a Linkuriboh. It's not the best board. I mean, there's definitely better boards I can set up with Mermail. I've even set up boards of a double co-linked Firewall with 2 Toads on board and Mulan still on board, which I suppose is kind of the end goal of my deck going first. I try and establish the biggest board I can, hence the Millenniumize Restrict in the main, or in the extra deck with the Instant Fusions in main, because then it kind of gives me more options to negate hand traps. I have 3 different ways to negate hand traps in the deck. Called by the Graves inside. I have the Frogs, which can establish pressure immediately the moment they're played, and then the Instant Fusion, which is for the Millenniumize. So we're going into Game 3, and at this point he starts with the Fossil Dig, and he adds the Overraptor. So he's already starting off pretty optimally, and from there he normal summons the Overraptor and attempts its effect. Can't remember exactly what he sends. I believe he sends the Giant Rex. Yep, he sends the Giant Rex. I thought, and then he activates Miscellaneousaurus. I originally thought he was going to send the Quatless to try and establish Conductor immediately, but then again, that's not the smartest play, so I was, if I'm not mistaken, I had the Ash, but then he banishes the Miscellaneousaurus effect, I believe. He banishes it, and another dinosaur special summons something based on the level. So special summons the Baby Ceratosaurus, and then Giant Rex comes out. And then he overlays into a rank 4. We all know what he's going into. One of those evil Sor Exceeds. I believe it's Dolka that he summons. Yep, so he summons Dolka, which is pretty good because it can negate monster effects, if I'm not mistaken. So I draw, and now it's my turn. So, yeah, he forgot to resolve his Baby Ceratosaurus effect, and it is mandatory, but I Ash it anyway. But, and then he chains his Dolka to Ash to negate it, which is completely fine with me. He just forgot to resolve his Miscellaneousaurus effect to destroy his Baby Ceratosaurus at end phase after special summoning it off of set effect. So it is mandatory, and I made sure of it. I told him, make sure you resolve your effects, dude. You can't be forgetting stuff like that, but it is what it is. We just kind of went back and repaired game state. So, it wasn't damaged to the point of, beyond repair. So we just went back and fixed it, and he special summons another Baby Ceratosaurus off of the first Baby Ceratosaurus. So now he has a Dolka on board. So I reveal a Swap Frog, discard Aqua Spirit, and he negates the Swap Frog. And that's what I mean by the frogs immediately putting pressure on your opponent to do something, because they know a frog's coming out otherwise. So now I normal summon the Prince. So I baited his Dolka, I send the Dragoons to add Dragoons, trigger the other Dragoons, add the Megalo, standard stuff with Mermail. Mermail is one of those decks where it's not linear, but some of the, given that you're just trying to OTK your opponent, it is very linear. You just play you send Dragoons, add Megalo, basically. So I reveal Megalo, discarding Dragoons and Diva. So Dragoons effect and Megalo effect. So I add Mulan. Actually, I believe I have the Equip spell in my hand already at this point, so never mind. just add the Moulin Glacier, just trying to rip cards out of his hand. I have exactly 5 Waters in grave at this point. So I summon the Moulin, rip 2 cards from his hand. So there's a Slumber and a Big Evolution Pill. Just kind of, now he's only playing 1 card, and I tribute the Prince for the Megalo effect, special summoning the Goons. And from this point, essentially, Goons swings over the Baby Ceratosaurus, Moulin over the Doka, and then Megalo for 32. And at this point, now I have pretty much an established board here, and he's only got 1 card, and he draws. So now he's only playing off of 2 cards. There's not too much he can do if I'm not mistaken, but he banishes the Slumber to add a Kaiju, which is, I guess, the most optimal play he can do at this point. You know, I mean, Moulin's just such a good card. It's so obscene. It's essentially a delinquent duo. So he tributes my Megalo with the Equip spell. So he Terraformings for the Lost World. Normal summons his Drac Alio for the token. And from here, he attacks the token, uses its effect to destroy a Dino from deck, if I'm not mistaken, and he destroys the Quatless to get the Big Evolution Pill. The deck is kind of completely centered around Lost World in a sense. If he's not hand trapping you, he's trying to summon the Conductor that he just summoned, for example, by comboing off with Lost World. So then he summons out his Giant Rex off of banishing with Big Evolution Pill. And so yeah, he just kind of reestablished just simply off of those few cards, which, you know, Connor's deck is pretty good. I'm going to try and get a deck profile for you guys as soon as possible. He may have changed it already, I'm not sure. But if he hasn't, I'll get it for you. And then he links into Underclock Taker, and then he uses its effect to reduce... What does he reduce here? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he may reduce the Moulin Glacier, knowing... oh no, at this point it's my turn. So I go into Link Karibo, which is already a thing. He has no monsters that he can destroy other than Underclock Taker and the Ultimate Conductor. So I don't understand. Is that exactly what he did here? Did he destroy something to flip everything? I'm not sure. Either way, oh, that's right. Before he could, I linked 3 into the Gaia Saber, so now he can't flip anything except for what I normal summon. So I normal summon the Prince, and this is where it's kind of all over. So I pay costs and the infantry, add the 3rd Dragoons, infantry pops the Dino, the Ultimate Conductor. I don't understand why he didn't destroy something. Oh, he did. So he destroyed the Conductor to flip my Prince face down. And at this point, I swing over his Underclock Taker with the Gaia Saber, and that's exactly game. You know, my Gaia Saber loses 500 attack points because of Lost World. But that is the duel video, guys. I appreciate any views you guys give us. I know this is the first duel video we've done in a while. You know, give us a break here. We're still working on stuff. You know, we're working on kind of playing as much as we can here. You know, I've just been focused on other things, skateboarding, living life, work. But, you know, I'm happy that we are able to get some content up. I have some other duel videos going up. This will be the first one in a while. But I have some other duel videos going up soon. I have some deck profiles. I actually have a vampire deck that's going up very, very soon as well. And not only is the deck profile for that deck going up, but there's a duel video that goes along with it. And the player you'll see who brought that deck to you, his name is John Savoy. He's a really, really cool guy. Really, really innovative player. I'm really happy that we were able to get his profile. So thank you guys. Eric here with Team Eccentric, and I'm signing out. Rate and subscribe, leave your comments and ideas in the comment section below, and don't hesitate to give us respectful suggestions on content you want to see. Eric on behalf of the team saying take care, and Team Eccentric out.